Over the past couple of decades, BMW's product range has really expanded. As it stands today, it includes sedans, hatchbacks, SUVs, sports cars, convertibles, you name it, and BMW offers it to you. But the 6 GT, we are driving the facelifted version of the 6 GT today, is a car that really doesn't fit in a stereotype segment. It's longer than a 5 Series, it's got lots of space, and as BMW says, it's a Gran Turismo in which you're supposed to do long journeys, continental journeys, without any problem. But that poses a question. Any BMW by its nature should be a driver's car. With a car that's posed for long journeys, with a car that's designed more for comfort, is the 6 GT still a driver's car? Well, let's drive it to find out. Of course, the design of BMW's cars in the recent past has been very polarizing. One of the biggest aspects is the grille. Well, thankfully on the 6 GT, the grille is larger than it was before, but it's not as humongous as you would see on an X7 and the 7 Series. And I think it still looks fairly decent. It doesn't really polarize opinion that badly. But some of the other details have been really well defined. You see, the older 6 GT, I always thought was a slightly frumpy design. But with the facelift, BMW's ironed out a lot of those problems. Our test cars features the M Sport kit, because of which you see this sharp front air dam. You see all these aerodynamic slats. I don't know how much aerodynamic aid they give the car, but they do look good. I quite like the headlights, and when you notice them quite closely, you'll notice that the daytime running lights are really well designed. They have this slightly crystal style effect, and interestingly, there is blue detailing. What is the blue detailing for? Well, that tells you that these are laser headlights, which are cutting edge, the best in the business, and at high speeds they can illuminate the road further up to you, up to 650 meters. And I've driven the BMW 6 Series GT at night, last night actually, and the headlights are very, very impressive. They're also adaptive and they contribute a lot to making night driving easier. The side profile of the 6 GT has also been cleaned up. On the M Sport kit, we get these 19-inch wheels. I think the wheels look quite good. The blue calipers also look quite interesting. You get little M badging, you get another aerodynamic slat here. And I think overall, if you look at it in profile, the 6 GT looks a lot more balanced. And in this nice pimento red, I think that BMW calls it, it's a pretty impressive color, and the 6 GT cuts a fine line. But I think my biggest problem with the 6 GT or any GT in the BMW history, whether it's the 3 GT or the 5 GT or the older 6 GT, the rear. To enhance the amount of boot space in the car, to enhance the amount of space in the rear seat of the car, the rear design of the 6 GT has been frumpy, and I have to say, even with all the improvements in the facelift, it still looks odd. It still looks a bit incomplete, and it looks like it's been very sharply cut off. But it does give the 6 GT a very unique identity. Overall, I still think the 6 GT looks much better at the front. In profile, the rear, not so much. So yes, it's a decent looking car, but it could have been designed slightly better to give it a more balanced look. When you get inside the 6 GT, there are two things that you'll notice. First, I really like these big seats that BMW offers in the 6 GT. They're comfortable, they're very comfy, they're big, they support you really well. And I think that's going to be a great addition if you're driving long distance. Two, if you're used to BMWs, you'll be familiar with the interior in no time. What I like about the interior, well, first of all, I love the fact that we still get physical controls for the HVAC system. I've said that before and I'll say it again, I hate using touchscreens when I'm driving, and having physical controls to change the temperature or the fan speed is such a blessing. It makes things much more intuitive, much more easier. On the topic of being intuitive, well, I'm also a big fan of BMW's iDrive controller. Yes, the touchscreen is easy to use, but while you're driving, the iDrive controller makes performing functions, changing settings, changing your music source, using the apps so much more intuitive and easier, and you don't have to take your eyes off the road too much. You don't have to, coordinate with your hands. So I think that iDrive controller is still the gold standard when it comes to multimedia functions or car functionality amongst the luxury car makers. Of course, big screens are the flavor of the day, and BMW is not lagging behind. For the multimedia, you get a 12.3-inch HD touchscreen, which works really well, is really sharp. I use Apple CarPlay. It offers wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. And Apple CarPlay looks really sharp. The navigation looks really crisp. So I think that's a great addition. You also get another 12.3-inch display here, which features the new digital dials that BMW does. But like I've said that before, and I'll say it again, I'm not a fan of the dials. The way they've been designed, they're counterintuitive. It takes me an extra second to read how much fuel the car has, what speed I'm doing. And I think sometimes reinventing the wheel is not really great. The other additions to the interior, you get a carbon carbon sound system which sounds fairly decent. You also get, as part of the M Sport kit, an M badge steering wheel. You get a digital M badge in front of you in the instrument cluster. But if you're buying a car like the 6 GT, more likely than not, you'll be somebody who prefers the rear seat. Is the rear seat really worth it? Is it that much of a jump over a 5 that you would choose a 6 GT? Well, let's find out. As you can see, when BMW says that the 6 GT is meant for grand touring, well, they're not kidding. Just look at the amount of space I have available in the rear seat. The front seat is set to my height. That's the position I like the seat to be in, and I have acres of legroom in front of me. The seat is also mounted slightly higher than the front seat, so which gives you a really good view. You know, I thought that sitting in the back of the 6 might make me feel a bit claustrophobic, but the window is quite large. The C-pillar window is also quite large, and it actually gives the car a really airy feel. The seat is quite comfortable. Like I said, I have lots of room. I also get this 10.25-inch display, which lets me see what the car is doing. I can change some of the settings. I can use it to view my own entertainment, listen to music. And it's also got lots of features that I really like. For instance, the summer's already here. It's 40+ degrees. As you can see, I'm sweating, and this is a great touch. These motorized blinds are a great blessing in the summer. Overall, I think the 6 GT in the rear feels really plush. It's a place I would happily sit in while I'm stuck in traffic or on a long journey while the chauffeur is taking me around. But the fundamental question then is the 6 GT fun to drive? Is it a true BMW, or is it a car that BMW has created for people who would prefer to be chauffeur driven? Well, let's find out and take the 6 GT onto the road. Other than the visual facelift, the 6 GT also gets more changes when it comes to the platform, when it comes to the engines. What's interesting is that the 6 GT will now offer 3 engines, 1 petrol, 2 diesel, which is interesting because we've seen that consistently the share of diesel engines in the Indian market is going down. Anyway, what we are driving today is the 630i. The 30, of course, in it is a misnomer. It's not a 3-litre straight 6. The 630i is powered by a 2-litre 4-cylinder turbocharged petrol engine, 255 bhp, 400 Nm of torque, 0 to 100 6.5 seconds, so it's fairly quick. The other 2 diesel choices, I think the first diesel choice is very interesting. It's the 620D. 2-litre 4-cylinder diesel, 188 bhp, that's an engine we are very familiar with. And the third is the 630D. The inline 6, 260 odd horsepower and 620 Nm of torque. That's going to be a flyer of a car. All 3 engines are offered with the 8-speed automatic gearbox, and as we all know, the ZF 8-speed in BMWs function absolutely superbly. And on the 630i, of course, the gearbox is simply phenomenal. The engine's also quite nice, and like I said, 0 to 100 comes up in 6.5 seconds. It actually is a pretty pleasing car to drive. The 6 GT gets dual wishbone front suspension, 5-link rear suspension and air suspension. And that air suspension is one of the great qualities of the 6 GT. Why? Well, you see, the 6 GT also offers various driving modes. In the 630i, for instance, I have Eco Pro to maximize the efficiency. I have Comfort, and I also have a Comfort Plus suspension setting. I have a Sport, I have a Sport Individual, in which I can configure for myself the settings. Sort of, I can change the damping, whether it's for comfort or sport, and the steering level, whether it's comfort or sport, the engine response, the transmission response. And that's where the great duality of the 6 GT and the appeal for me for 6 GT lies. Because when I put it into sport, configure all the settings to sport, it certainly becomes a car that's fast, that's sharp, that's fun to drive. And you know, okay, it might not be as agile as a 3 Series or a 5 Series, it'll never be. It's taller, it's wider, it's heavier, the center of gravity is higher, but it still becomes a fun car to drive, especially with that much space in the back. On the other hand, if I put the car into Comfort Plus, the air suspension really mellows down to a level where even on broken roads, despite the fact that the 6 GT rides on 19-inch low-profile tires, the ride quality is simply fantastic, and that's the duality that I love for the 6 GT. If you're a person who's driven around most of the time, you can leave the car in Comfort Plus if you're going long distance and you want to have the most comfortable ride. But if you want to drive, you can also put it into Sport, Individual, and really drive it around. Yes, it might lack that final 5-10% of involvement that a typical BMW gives you, but it's almost there. It still gives you 85-90% of the feel and fun. Of course, adding to that is the great engine, fantastic gearbox. You have paddle shifters, but honestly, it's been 2 days that I've been driving the car. I haven't used the paddle shifters even once. So, where do I place the 6 GT? It's not your typical BMW, I think that much is clear even from the way you look at it. But it does offer you a very compelling package. Lots of space, 2 types of driving profiles. You can keep it comfortable, you can make it sporty. Yes, the looks can be a bit challenging. The other thing, well, it's over 5 meters long, so you have to be careful. In urban areas, finding parking for the 6 GT won't be as easy. Second, because of the way the rear of the car is shaped, because of BMW's attempt to give it maximum amount of room in the boot, the view out of the rear view mirror for me is not good. There's not much that I can see, and I have to rely on the cameras to park the car. So that's something I don't like that much. And that's where the 6 GT excels. It gives you extra room, it gives you duality, you can use it, it's very practical. Yes, the length is a bit of an issue, the design is a bit of an issue, but I think if you're willing to make a statement, if you're willing to stand out from the crowd and get a really good package at the same time, the 6 GT is quite compelling.